Separators.
Yeah. Yeah, so the 91. Well,
Mics are going hot.
All right. Good morning, everyone. It's 11:30. We're going to go ahead and kick off our pre-commission agenda. I know we're going to have a little celebration, but I just want to acknowledge that this is Commissioner Hansen's last meeting after 12 years of service. And it's a little bittersweet, but we'll have a celebration after our meeting today. And this is our last meeting for the year of 2024. So we will be reconvening when, Miss Stacy, the 7th? The 8th. So the 8th is our next meeting as a commission, unless barring any like emergency meetings for weather or what have you. So that's what you all can expect. Any questions on the agenda? Commissioner
Madam
Goldthorpe?
President,
Commissioner McKinney?
I do have some questions on the consent agenda if we have a couple minutes.
We do. Go ahead.
Thank you. Let's see. Director, primarily, we've got a couple of bid awards. I think it's helpful just for the public's information at the very least to look at these in terms of our budgets and so on. Item number 4 on the consent agenda, this is the Meridian downtown pavement and pedestrian improvements. How does the low bid compare to both our estimate and our budget for this project?
Diane.
And I have the same question on item number 9, Eagle Road and State Street Phase 2 project. Let me see here.
Commissioner McKinney, for the 2025 Meridian Downtown Pavement Pedestrian Improvements, the low bid was, let's see, 15% below engineer's estimate and 3% above our combined budget. That's over 25 and 26. So very good, close to our budget amount.
So
And
the,
came in much lower than our
so the
engineer's
low,
estimate.
the low bid was 7.8 million approximately. And so our engineer's estimate was,
$9,238,058.
okay, and then
This
the
is all in
combined
the
budget.
staff memo as well.
Okay, and the combined budget amount was how much?
I don't have the budget amount. It's 3%. You take
3% above
7.8.
7.8 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, or sorry, 3% below then. The budget was a little bit below what it came in at. This is 3%
No, the
above.
bid was 3% above the budget.
Above
So the
budget,
budget's 3% lower than that low bid amount.
Okay, then let's talk about then item number 9, the
Yes,
Eagle Road
sir.
and State Street Phase 2, same questions.
Okay, the low bid at 4.8 million. came in 22.5% below our engineer's estimate and 4.3% below our budget. I will point out that this one has $2.149 million in strategic initiatives funds from the state as well.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Then, thank you. I appreciate that. Then Director, I just have one more question for you on item number 5.
Don't leave.
The Director, the cellular signal booster system, we talked extensively in our last meeting about the budget for our Meeker headquarters. Is this 107,000-ish within what we've been anticipating, or is this another something new?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, it is within the numbers we talked about last week.
Okay, good.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Thank you.
Yes, back to item number 4. I have a question about the low bidder itself. The only time in 30 or 40 or close to 50 years that I've ever seen any DASCO equipment in Ada County has been to lay gas lines. What experience do they have? This is just for my benefit to make us think they're deserving or able to do this work.
Commissioner Goldthorpe, they have been a subcontractor on a lot of our other projects. They have worked for other agencies, and I've been told that they've done a lot of development work for us as well. So they do have experience in roadway construction and ACHD right-of-way.
Interesting, but they've always done work for others, not for us.
Correct. I think this is the first time they will be the prime contractor on a project.
Okay, then what I would ask is the same thing that I ask for the other contractor that's been getting the majority of our business lately, who I was worried about on 5 Mile and Cloverdale, and that is that we make sure it gets done right.
Yes, sir. We will have our project inspectors on site ensuring that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, I just want to appreciate the staff. This is my last meeting, and it probably is one of the biggest staff packets that I had to read through since I got started last Friday reading through it. It's nothing like making sure you have lots and lots to read. It's incumbent on us to read that. I think it's also indicative that how important it was for us to set the priorities of the various cities, the priority to do investments in downtown Meridian. And I'm glad to see that project bid is going forward at $7.8 million. And downtown Eagle, which has been a long time in the works, seeing that going forward with 4.8. The other is also on the agenda. Just wanted to point out that if you took the time to read the resumes of the people who applied for the openings on the Bicycle Advisory Committee meeting, they are impressive, some impressive people. And having sat through the Bicycle Advisory Committee meeting as they discussed them, it was hard for them to make a choice. So, but we are making an appointment on item number 11. And I just want to do a shout out to that committee and the fact that we've come a long way. It used to be, you had to twist arms to get people to serve on these advisory committees. And now we're getting the best of the best. And as a result, we're getting some really good evaluation and advice of all the things we're working on. So just wanted to point that out since it's on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Commissioner, any other questions on the agenda? Director.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam President, Commission. It's always a pleasure to visit with you. Today, I just have a brief presentation. Really wanted to think about where we are in the year, and so today I'm going to go through the 12 months of ACHD. I will spare you from singing it. I don't think you want to hear that. Plus, I think that's one of the most annoying Christmas songs ever because of the constant repetition of
Don't
it.
start it with a controversy here.
I know. I don't want to get into that.
But
But
just get Mariah Carey to sing it and it'll be fine.
oh, there you go. We'll work on that. We've had a great year. It's been a good year here at ACHD, and we've had a lot of successes. And so just want to go through some of the highlights of the year for each of the months. as we've gone along. The first, we entered into the year with one of the greatest accumulation of snow that we've seen. And the team was tremendous in working through that. You know, even the accumulation outpaced Snowmageddon, and the team responded, handled it well. I think the fact that it was handled so well and the amount of comments that came in were far less than we experienced during Snowmageddon. We've definitely learned lessons. We also named some plows, and we're excited to continue to display that.
Madam President,
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
think if the state of Idaho and Boise State fans have their way and good things happen at the end of the week, we should figure out how to put a replica of the Heisman as the hood ornament on that truck.
Snowplow.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, I think that's a great idea. I think we should go that route. I thought you were going to suggest, as some have been considering, how we get the plow down to Arizona, but there's not many plows down there, so I think they might not know what to do with it. February brought us the beginning of the Eagle and State project and that big investment in downtown. This project has definitely been, it's tight quarters down there, but the team has done tremendous, and great shout outs to the project manager, the inspector, our communications team, who has really worked well with the small businesses in that area to make this project a success. The fact we're moving into phase 2 and no one's screaming and shouting that they don't want any more is a big deal. March brought some international recognition of our pavement preservation efforts. Truly, as the highway district, this is one of we hold this as our gold standard, and it was part of the reason we were created to begin with, was to make sure we took care of the roads, and the team does an amazing job, and we were happy to celebrate with them in that. April brought one of our favorite times of the year, pothole week, or pothole month. Month. I don't know. Week? Yeah, we're calling it a week. We're always working on potholes, but pothole week is always a great time in recovering from the winter to really emphasize and make sure that the roads are in good condition there. We also saw our first slow zone installation here in the county, which was exciting. We continue to learn from that experience and in ways that we can continue to improve safety. May brought the wonderful news that we will have a new headquarters, and we continue to work on that as we've talked, and thank the commission for that investment, and we'll be excited to have the team all back together. And that'll be next year's 12 months of ACHD. June was a busy month as the crews were out in full steam on working on improvements on our chip seal, on the full construction season. We looked internally as well and did the first reorganization in over 15 years of the highway district, really to emphasize what is our priority, and that is to build infrastructure and to ensure that we are aligned under that premise. July brought the completion of the Lake Hazel and Maple Grove roundabout. This project was a tough one. Working with the neighborhoods, we learned some things in terms of how do we prepare for and anticipate people who do not follow the signed detour routes. And the team not only worked hard with the neighborhood and addressed those concerns, but also worked hard to get this project done well ahead of schedule. And so it was a good example. This is an award-winning project, and we're excited for this one to be completed. August, we joined with the rest of the community, inviting kids back to school, and celebrated the work that the team had done and to make that a safer experience, to address the safety of children. We highlighted 15 projects that were completed right before, but there were many more done over the summer to make sure that the kids were able to get to school safely. September was another big month in which we began the largest capital project in a very long time here at the Highway District to expand the last mile of Eagle Road down to Lake Hazel, to improve that intersection and to get that connection down to Lake Hazel and that cross county road. We also had the largest fundraising effort we've ever had through our 22nd annual golf tournament to complete or to support military families. $310,000 was a huge amount of money to be raised, and it was a great success. We also completed a large investment in the Boise Bench with the Garden Street project and the work that's being done there to really connect that community down to the Greenbelt, to invest in needs and desires that have been requested there for a long time. October brought the end of our chip seal season officially. We finished the work leading up to that. We got all the lines painted and we were able to wrap up the season. It also began our in-depth look at our pavement preservation. While recognized internationally, we want to make sure that we're always focused on doing the right thing. And this year was definitely a challenge, but we want to always continue to see how we can improve, and this October brought the beginning of that review. November brought the completion of the State Street 4th to 8th project. That was a tough one, right? We encountered some things that were very challenging, but we were so excited to have that project complete and back open for all those going into downtown. And with November, Chippy came back. Or with December, Chippy came back. He wished the Broncos good luck, and we're going to claim that's the reason why they were so successful in the Mountain West Championship, and we wish them the best of luck in the upcoming weeks. But even more, we want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from staff. We are so grateful for all the work that this commission does to support our team, and are grateful for all of the great things that you let us have a part in. With that, commission, just upcoming events. We will be having our annual holiday party this Saturday, but even more fun is starting another big project next week with our State and Pierce Park construction kickoff meeting. Utilities are already being moved there, and we're excited to see that work start for the new year. And with that, commission, I'll stand for any questions.
Ryan, thank you for that update. It's always a good reminder of everything that we've accomplished in the year. And you did not give yourself a shout out of you taking over this role 6 months into the year. And what a fine job you've done.
Thank you.
And I know I can't speak for everyone, but I know everyone's going to agree with me that we couldn't be more grateful of your leadership and the tremendous work of this organization and the staff that make it happen. So, yes. Anything else, commissioners?
Yeah.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
I'll add to that. I mean, I've got a pretty good big mouth and big set of ears, and I will tell you, I hear nothing but accolades from everyone who I talk to about the fact that you're the director now.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, we'll be at ease for 13 minutes. We'll get started at noon. Thank you. See you, bye. Oh, my
It
gosh.
is wintry.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's now 12 o'clock. I know you're all very excited for us to get underway. But before we get started, I want to invite us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Welcome everyone that's joining us in person and online. I think we'll try to accommodate and add some more space if we can. And we do have 4 spots up in the front. So you're welcome to kind of come in, get settled. There's a few on the second row on this side. Get cozy. This is a great group of folks. All right. Well, with that, commissioners, is there a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Second. Moved and second. Any discussion?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
I think just for correction's sake, to adopt the agenda rather than approve.
No, thank you. Adopt the agenda.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item is the approval of the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless otherwise noted. We do not have any requests. So commissioners, is there a motion?
Madam President, having
Commissioner.
read all the items on the consent agenda, I move their approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so we have 3 main action items today. The first one being the Boulder Heights 11 request for approval. Welcome, Ms. Christy Little. You have quite the audience today.
I know. Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, Christy Little, Development Services Manager. Lots of wonderful people behind me and lots of wonderful people in front of me, and how fitting, Commissioner Hanson, that this is on your last meeting. Brought out all of your friends from the Mesa. So just to orient you again, we're talking about the final phase for Boulder Heights, which is circled in red, and then Starview Drive down there near the bottom off of Warm Springs Avenue. Boulder Heights and I have a long history. Starting back in 2001, ACHD and the city of Boise approved 228 buildable lots for Boulder Heights, and we required improvements to Starview Drive. We didn't set any condition relating to timing of improvements. In the late, 2018-ish to 2020, we worked with the developer to come up with a new street section for Starview Drive that included bicycle and pedestrian facilities to really improve accessibility to the Greenbelt and to the Mesa and through that area. In 2021, we were back before the commission, and the commission further clarified that Starview Drive had to be constructed prior to approval of any further final plats. So from 2001 to today, the developer has final platted 203 buildable lots of the 228. Starting in spring of 2024, they began construction on Starview Drive, and it is ongoing. Here's how things looked out there this week. It looks like they're building 2 roads. They're not. On the picture on the left, you can see the upper roadway is actually Starview Drive, and the roadway in the other pictures is a construction access road for the wall construction. Milestones for this project, you'll recall this summer, we had a lengthy closure of Warm Springs Avenue to accommodate the rebuild, a very necessary rebuild of the Starview Drive, Warm Springs Avenue intersection. They did get that completed before school started, which was a huge concern for us, and we got that completed. Also this summer, you'll recall we updated you that a spring was discovered in the area, which required work to stop and a redesign of that wall. That took quite a fair amount of time and redesign and caused a delay to the schedule. I'm going to let the applicant speak to where they are, what their schedule is with regard to Starview Drive, and update you more on that. So here's what they're asking for. They're proposing the final 23 lots, or excuse me, the final lots they're proposing to divide into 2 phases. So in red would be a final plat for Boulder Heights 11, which they would seek approval for very soon. And then they're proposing that the final plat for Boulder Heights Phase 12, that they wouldn't seek approval for that final plat until after the roadway had been constructed and accepted for maintenance. ACHD, as you'll recall, we required a bond in the amount of $3.6 million at the start of this Starview Drive project. We continue to hold that bond, and they haven't, M3 Companies hasn't requested a reduction. According to M3, the remaining cost to complete Starview Drive itself after the wall is about $1 million. So we still have a very adequate surety to protect the highway district. So staff is recommending approval that we allow one final plat for up to 14 lots and no other final plat approval until Starview Drive is complete and accepted for maintenance. I will note, then the applicant can speak to it further, but they do have, it seems, regular communication with the neighborhood association president, and I did notify the new president last week of our hearing this week. So I know we've got folks in attendance today.
Thanks, Christy. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Madam President?
Commissioner McKinney?
Christy, I wonder if you could go back to the aerial photo showing the whole neighborhood. I just want to make sure that the location of these new lots relative to Starview Drive is clear. I see Starview Drive there on the lower left. Is that large circle, is that where this new phase is located?
That's correct. And that's the very last phase of the overall development.
Okay, so those new streets are actually a fair bit away from Starview Drive, but of course Starview Drive still connects into that end of the neighborhood.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, I would invite the applicant to come up. He's welcome to come up if, there he is. Perfect. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mark Tate for the record, 1673 Shoreline Drive, Suite 200. And Commissioner Hanson, I wish you weren't so beloved, and we've got quite an audience for this one here today. And I echo what Christy said. This is a fitting send-off for you up there. I know you know the area well. Christy mentioned the schedule. We did start the work actually a little bit ahead of schedule out there right at the end of school, getting out. If you remember, the original schedule that we had laid out would have had us paved now, getting final sign-offs of this project. Unfortunately, as we excavated for this wall, we did find a significant amount of water coming out of the hillside where we didn't expect it, and that did require a redesign and a pretty substantial delay in the project. The good news is we have a plan for it. We are back up and running. The last things that were completed, there are soil nails in the footing of the wall that we had spent many months drilling. Those go down about 80 feet into the ground every 5 feet. There's also soil nails that go horizontally into the hillside as well. And so on those photos, you could see that concrete shoring. We're now in a position to be bringing the wall up. So we can do that during winter. They're out there working right now. Freezing conditions are actually pretty nice to work in. What will slow us down during some periods this winter is with rain and mud will actually slow things down a little bit. But from a schedule standpoint, we're hoping to really start prepping for concrete in March. So we have from now until March to get the wall built, which from a working day standpoint, it could be potentially completed in end of January, early February. I'm sure we'll have some delayed days in there, but we plan to jump right onto the concrete and asphalt as soon as possible. Our schedule has us paving around the end of May. And as Christy said, we're not requesting a surety reduction, even though we've spent most of that money. We're asking for some of the last phase, which is all completely built, by the way, just a small portion of it to be recorded now. We do think that's good for the existing neighborhood. They'd like to get our construction and builders out of their hair as well. Everybody understands, I'm sure you hear regularly about disruptions from construction, and that's really just prolonging it up in the neighborhood. We'll still have 11 lots remaining with a market value far exceeding the remaining cost to build Starview. So between both of those things, we have huge financial interest in getting Starview done. And I think everybody who's seen us from the start of this project knows we've been working in very good faith to get this thing done as soon as humanly possible. And that is the plan and still remains to be the plan. So with that, I request that we get this little phase done and you'll never have to hear about Boulder Heights or Starview ever again.
Thanks, Mr. Tate. Any questions for the applicant?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
Mark, just a quick question to clarify. Is the existing Starview Drive, is it still open to traffic and will it remain open?
It is not. Yeah, we had to really essentially cut the road down the middle to get to the bottom of where the wall is, and then we're going to build it back up. So Starview is not open to public traffic. There is 2 current existing accesses into the mesa that have been used over the last year. Warm Springs is back open, as Christy mentioned, and we did get that back open ahead of schedule before school started. And I will add, not to pat myself on the back too much, but one of the big requests from the neighborhood association, who rightly has big concerns about fire danger, we saw that very clearly this year, was having emergency access through Warm Springs, even when the road is torn apart. And we do have an email from the fire department thanking us. They went through multiple times, responding to incidents and just checking, and they were able to get through every time. So we did work hard to accommodate the neighbors, and was at their last board meeting and been communicating the progress and delays as best we can.
So from now until next spring, when the paving is done, it'll remain closed to
Correct.
Public traffic.
Yes.
But it'll be accessible for emergency access, like you say.
Yeah, we can get construction access up and down. So if really an emergency vehicle did need to get up there, it is possible. But it's not easy. It's kind of 1 lane up high and 1 lane down low at this point.
Okay, so the retaining wall and the earthwork can be done through the cold months, and probably then you're saying by end of January, it's likely to be done.
Yeah,
You'll
if
have
there's
a-
any delay, it could be into February.
Okay,
But
so,
that won't affect any of our schedule to get the project done really until March, when we can have warm enough weather to start prepping for concrete.
okay, great,
So
thank
we've got
you.
a pretty good buffer in there on the wall.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, thank you, President Pickering. Mr. Tate, thanks very much. As you know, I've been probably the most adamant about insisting that the neighborhood be informed and be engaged in this process.
Yes.
And reason why we held up the approvals and of the final plat and increased the surety. So I appreciate the letter you sent and that the fact that the surety will remain in place. My question really is just about this latest request, this final request, is your communication with the neighborhood association and what their response has been. And I don't know if they're here today to.
There are a
testify.
couple members
Oh,
of
good.
the association board that are here today. I spoke to Mr. Binion out in the lobby.
Okay.
I was at their last meeting, and I did present to them on this, and I had communicated prior to that meeting to the board president about the schedule delays. Once we knew what was going on up there, we communicated that there was a delay, and then once we had a schedule and a plan for it, we communicated that. Then did go present to them at their last board meeting what this proposal was going to be. And I did the gist of my presentation was that there's nothing that we can do to make this go faster on Starview. We are doing absolutely everything that we can to get Starview completed. We don't see that this request has any negative implications for the residents up there. All it's going to do is be able to help get us out of there and get the construction done, and the people that live around it won't have to live in a construction site for longer than necessary. So I don't see any downside to the neighborhood by granting this request. I know they have had some valid concerns about the timing of Starview, the design of Starview, even questioning our commitment to getting it done. And I just think all of that is beyond questioning at this point. We're going as quick as we can. Right.
Thanks, Mr. Tate. Any other questions? Okay, Steve, are we taking testimony on this item? We are. Okay, Ms. Stacy, is there anyone that signed up to testify?
We would have the neighborhood association president come first if they wanted to, and then I only have one person, Karen Ekblad,
Thank you.
to
Thank you.
testify.
Karen, you're welcome to come and testify if you're ready. Welcome.
My name's Karen Ekblad, and I've been involved in the Starview thing since it was delayed years ago and not built. So my main point would be, I don't understand why, now that we finally have the project going, that we have to risk an ACHD and Starview in the neighborhood another delay that could very well happen. That whole area is a slide area. And just because they're saying, or people are saying, engineers, and I'm an engineer, by the way, a civil engineer, that there could not be any more delays or any more slides or any more water discovered running out of that hillside, that is not true. And so I do not understand Mr. Tate saying that we're all just dying for them to go build 11 more houses before this is over. We've been through this construction for however many houses, 200. We can stand to wait for the last 11 to get built once Starview is built. That is not what the neighborhood is clamoring for. What we want is assurance. We don't know what the weather's going to be. We don't know if there's going to be a big snowstorm. He's talking about the mud. The whole thing could get delayed again. If you're familiar with that road and that neighborhood, it is a slide area. So, and there's lots of water running down underneath there. In the spring, there's going to be a lot more. So I think the main thing with the neighborhood is we would like it to stay the way it is. We would not like them to get allowance to build just 11 more houses. And I'm not sure why CHD or the city council is responsible to ameliorate any financial things going on with M3. I mean, this is that's their business. It's not really our business to make their financial life easier.
Karen, are you representing the neighborhood association? Or yourself?
I am the VP of the Boulder Heights HOA, and I'm a member of the neighborhood association.
So you're not representing the full board though? Or are
I
you
am not on the
yourself?
board.
Okay.
But Casey would totally agree with what I'm saying, and I'm sorry he couldn't be here today. But from what I've heard from all the neighbors, that would be, I mean, you'll get some written testimony or things turned in, but I don't think you're going to see somebody saying, yes, I want them to build 11 houses until Starview's done.
Thanks, Karen. We just need your address as well for the record.
1923 South Ridge Point Way.
Thanks, Karen. Any questions?
And I'm signed it.
Any
Yes.
questions for Ms. Karen? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, commissioners.
Steve Binion.
Oh, we haven't
Oh,
done.
Steve? Oh, Mr. Binion, welcome.
maybe I did not plan to speak, but I will clarify the board's position. I am on the board, David Benyon at 2212 South Ridge Point Way. I'm chairman of the development committee on the board. Went back on the board 2 years ago. I've been involved in this thing since 1999 and was there when the original agreement was signed. Mr. Tate came to our board meeting here a couple of weeks ago. He did request a letter of support for this request to ACHD. The board chose not to take a position on that. We voted no relative to writing a request. I think the board's position, or at least mine certainly, and a number of the other board members, Casey asked me to be here today. He's the new president. And I think Kelly, the past president, certainly agrees. I've texted with her. I think probably the position is that it's unfortunate, very frustrating that M3s choose to deliver this project the way they have in the past 3 or 4 years. And so there's a lot of frustration. I think it's certainly my feeling that it's the board's decision, ACHD's decision, is there adequate financial protection because the project is in a situation where it can't move forward. And whose fault that is, I'm not gonna talk about. Anyhow, that's I think that there's certainly, as a previous homeowner spoke, there's a tremendous amount of frustration towards ACHD and M3 relative to this. I think people appreciate the fact that ACHD stood up and took the position they did take ultimately. And I think a lot of people understand that. There's some people that just flat don't understand it. They've had it. So as a board, I think that's your decision. What we need to do is get the thing done. And I would encourage M3 to take care of some of the things that need to be cleaned up that are left in the other construction so that people are more comfortable. Thank you for your time and your patience with me over the years.
Thanks,
And thank
David.
you too,
Yeah.
Jim.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
All right, well, this has been a long time coming. I was a little surprised that we needed to take this, but I think Dave Benyon, you made the characterization accurate. Is there adequate financial protection? Just to give a little background, we were pretty adamant, and it was a huge burden on the developer because they had plans and would like to do other things to move forward with their development. We said, no, you've made an agreement to build this road. It's not being built by the taxpayers, it's being built by the developer. So, but the timing of it, and as everybody knows on the hillside, anything can go wrong. I wanted to say that's all water under the bridge, but that's a bad metaphor. At this point, the question is there adequate financial protection for the taxpayers? There's about $1 million worth of final work that needs to be done. And the developer is letting the agency hold on to $3.6 million surety. So there's more than adequate protection. I don't think the request is unreasonable. I also don't think it's not going to not be completed. Yes, there might be some storms that cause further delay, but the taxpayers are holding on to the developer's money far in excess of what it would cost to remediate that. And so I don't have a problem moving forward, making that final request so that at least the cash flow of the developer to get this thing done. It is probably one of the most frustrating projects, one of the most frustrating things that we've faced over the last umpteen years. Dave Benyon's been at it longer than I have, but to try and get this last phase done with the assurance that that third entrance is built adequately. Those of you who know the history, that road was not built properly. It's never been safe, and the developer was required to rebuild it, and attempted it earlier stages to try and not rebuild it or had other things develop. But we held them to it. And now we're just in the last phase. And so I don't have a problem approving the request for the what would be the formal request for modification of the previous decision to allow for the development of the phase 11 and leaving phase 12 for the final assurance of completion of Starview.
Is that a motion?
So I would make that motion.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
let me just add, a couple of years ago, when the developer came to us and asked for the condition to be removed, we stuck to our guns and said, no, you've got to build this, and that was the right decision. Here we are now. The construction is now well underway, and it's going to be finished, and we're at a point where I feel like there's, as Commissioner Hanson mentioned, there's adequate assurance that the construction will be done. But more than that, the concern was made about potential slide issues. I'm a civil engineer myself, so I certainly appreciate those, and I appreciate the difficulties of construction projects. The good thing is here that we've got the major construction is well underway. It's going to be completed here during the winter season, which means that from here on out, no matter what happens, if we approve this or didn't approve this, the concerns about slide in that area won't change. So our decision here wouldn't change possible concerns about, geotechnical issues in the area. Likewise, since the construction's moving forward, I think we have adequate assurance that, yeah, it's going to get done here. And that's always been our concern as an agency, is to make sure that that gets done. And I think we have that assurance here. So I would be, I'm in favor of granting this modification as well.
Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. So we're going to move on to item number 2. It's our authorization and order of condemnation for Cloverdale Road, Victory Road to Overland Road, project number 521021. These are multiple parcels, which we'll talk a little bit about why that is, but parcels 23, 24, 27, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 39. This is a public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Welcome, Mr. Serdar.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, David Serdar, right-of-way supervisor for the Ada County Highway District. As mentioned, this is a public hearing and decision briefing for a condemnation. It's on the Cloverdale and Victory Road to Overland project. A little history. This condemnation consists of 8 properties owned by the Pepper Hills HOA. The project itself is part of the ACHD adopted 2025 to 2029 integrated 5-year work plan. The properties are located on the east side of Cloverdale Road. It's a little hard to see there because it's such a long stretch, but you can see the fee acquisitions are that tan. There's kind of a bluish that's also the temporary construction easements, and that's shown in blue. Just a piece of information here. The Reidenbach Canal was previously located on parcel 24, which is kind of that half moon piece there. And it was previously moved as part of development. And ACHD plans a stormwater basin for this actual section of property. So that's why that's kind of that one big piece that's there. It's where it was encumbered by the canal. And now we're actually going to put a stormwater basin on that site. The property size before the acquisition is 2.7 acres, and the property size after the acquisition is 1.587 acres. The property is zoned single-family residential. ACHD staff began contacting the HOA in February of 2023. Staff has researched owner's representative and registrar's agents and has made multiple attempts to contact the HOA representatives. There has been no response from the HOA other than signing the receipt of the 10-day letter. It is staff recommendation that we declare the acquisition area as necessary for the project as a right-of-way and public use. Authorize staff to proceed with the condemnation action and execute a order of condemnation for the acquisition area. As always, if we do have someone from the HOA actually come and talk to us or also our legal department through this process, staff will continue that negotiation. So I will remain standing for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sirdar. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Okay. Is the HOA present? Yeah. No? Okay. Well, then I'll move into public testimony. Is there anyone that would like to testify on this item? All right, well, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Madam President, I would move that we authorize the order of condemnation for Cloverdale Road, Victoria Road, Overland project number 521-021, parcels 23, 24, 27, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 39.
I'll second that. And Madam President, let me just add, I've spoken with the staff on this. I appreciate their response to my questions on this. What we've got here are a bunch of parcels, none of which are owned by individual homeowners. They're all part of an HOA. And so this is, in my mind, an easy question.
Okay.
Madam
Any
President?
other discussion? Commissioner
Yeah,
Hanson?
Madam President, yeah, I don't have a problem with this. Cloverdale is designated as a mobility corridor. It's the condemnations on non-mobility arterial corridors that I have a difficulty with. So I understand this moving forward. The one thing I do want to just keep pointing out is that staff report shouldn't reference the fact that the approval of the budget or the approval of the 5-year work plan this last August and September is in fact a finding of public necessity on all potential condemnations. It is not. We need to make those findings separately with each one, whether we do or don't condemn a sliver of property. I want to make that clear. The approval of the budget, the approval of the 5-year work plan, which has lots and lots and lots of projects in it, is not a finding of public necessity for any individual ones within that. A lot of decisions go into making those decisions. So I just want to put that on the record and hope that that's resolved in the future.
Okay, and if there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Dave. All right, the finale of our regular agenda. This is ordinance number 253. And an ordinance amending Title II, Section 5104.2 of the Ada County Highway District Code regarding policies and procedures for residential traffic management, specifically traffic calming, to mitigate negative effects of excessive traffic speed and or volume on residential streets, and establishing an effective date. This isn't a request for adoption, a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If we don't come to a decision, that's fine. We can delay, but just want to make that known, and it's a big day for us today. Welcome, Justin.
Madam President, members of the commission, thank you very much. For the record, my name is Justin Lucas. I'm the Chief of Operations and Infrastructure here at the Ada County Highway District. After many months of working on this, several work sessions and a lot of outreach, we bring forward today the opportunity for the commission to adopt this change to policy. Changes to policy, as you know, are often required to be done by ordinance. That is the case today. And I'll just remind you up front, that does take 4 votes. So just going back a little bit on some of the key principles surrounding this policy and maybe a little bit of history briefly. There have been over the years some questions and concerns related to ACHD's approach to analyzing and installing traffic calming devices on residential roadways. These are primarily collector streets or local streets within neighborhoods where people live adjacent to these streets and use them every day to access their home and their school and where they live. We've had a policy in place for many years related to the installation of traffic calming, but some of the things we've heard about over the years are the difficulty understanding the policy from the public, some of the thresholds and criteria in the policy being concerning to some members of the public, and this has also been shared with commissioners. And in recent months, we took a deeper dive in this and have bringing forward this policy for approval today. Some of the key principles we did kind of use to build all of this and do this review, and the commission, I believe, supported all of these ideas, was to make sure it continues to be a data-driven and fact-based approach, that the eligibility criteria are very clear, looking for a majority of support from residents adjacent to the streets, predictable for everyone involved, and also sensitive to staff capacity. You know, these types of efforts can be they can put a burden on staff depending on the type of requests that come in, the complexity of the policy, and things like that. So all of those were some of the key principles that we did as we went through this. As you're aware, the policy, the draft, and the red line that you've gone over, it had some pretty big changes. The policy overall was reduced from 5 pages down to 2 pages. A lot of things that were kind of extraneous and things like that were removed from the policy to make it more simple to understand overall. There was some legacy requirements that the district, under commission direction, had already kind of moved away from, related to cut-through traffic and neighborhood financial support, that were also removed. But those basic eligibility features and some of those menu of traffic calming items that have been discussed but were never included in the policy are now included directly in the policy. We did review all the speed and volume thresholds. Some of the adjustment factors that were previously included were deleted. The language surrounding how we established these thresholds was simplified, and each of those thresholds was actually reduced by about 2 or 3 miles per hour. One of the big changes in the policy was this idea of how we gather support for the projects that could be an outcome of the policy. The previous policy required 75% support from adjacent residents, and it also required essentially a neighborhood champion to gather that support through a petition process. The new policy reduces the overall support to 60% of adjacent residents. And to be clear, that's those who live in the homes adjacent to the roadway or in those houses affected, and not the owners. It's the residents themselves. And it also has ACHD essentially helping to facilitate that outreach process with a uniform, hopefully and largely technology-based approach. Not to say that the residents, there can't still be champions, and I'm sure there still will be, but it just allows ACHD to manage and facilitate that communication process a little bit more directly. Another thing, and I'll just point out before jumping into some of that outreach, is we also created this kind of one-page summary or cut sheet of the policy that can be used as we work with the neighborhoods, posted on our website, so people can very clearly see not only the steps you have in the process, but the different factors within each of those steps related to all the things that we've discussed today. So on that note, we did a lot of outreach through this process. We were able to develop this policy in coordination with the commission through multiple work sessions. When the commission felt it was satisfied with a draft, we then went out and visited with all of our advisory committees at ACHD, which provide counsel and direction to the commission on these types of issues. We had it posted on our website. We did outreach related to the overall policy update, and ultimately are here today with that final draft for your approval. It is staff's recommendation that the commission adopt ordinance number 253, amending Title II, Section 5104.2 of the Ada County Highway District Policy Manual or Code. And I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Justin. Commissioners, any questions for Justin?
Comment.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Justin, I would just like to thank you all for this. It hasn't just been a few months. We've been addressing this off and on for at least the 10 years that I've been here. And so the work that's been done, the changes that have been made, the more neighborhood friendly this has become, instead of property only owner friendly. I just appreciate all of this. And thank you and the staff for the efforts.
Madam President.
Commissioner McKinney?
Justin, just quickly, I wonder, given under the new policy, there's more involvement of the staff, or at least there's more work for the staff. Do we have any kind of an estimate of, what's it going to cost ACHD? What kind of additional staff resources are going to be needed to implement this policy? Do we have any idea on that?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, thank you. I think it's a really good point. The way we've structured it, there's not going to be any short or medium term staff specific like FTE staff request on this. Working with our communications department, we have in-house resources to help us create the kind of literature associated with the public outreach process. And we really do plan to leverage our existing website and existing technology that we have access to through Engage ACHD to kind of facilitate the outreach process and manage the kind of the collection of the signatures per se through the process. So I think we feel pretty comfortable that with technology specifically, we can get this done. We will then, and you'll see in the policy, we were pretty clear, we were pretty specific and didn't make a lot of commitments related to that outreach policy in the outreach effort in the policy itself, knowing that we may need to modify it a little bit and change it depending on the type of how big of these requests are, how complex this becomes. But I think right now, if I had to give an estimate, I think we're confident that with the existing staff and resources and some of the new technology through our communications department that we have, that we can make this work.
Okay, so I guess then the bottom line is it'll take a little more staff work dedicated to this than before, but we can do it with existing personnel and facilities, is what you're saying.
That is correct. And to be clear, the staff has been very involved in all of these requests and will remain involved. And so even though we haven't had that ACHD facilitated outreach process in the past, that doesn't mean that staff has not been very involved, taking phone calls, answering questions. So we imagine a lot of that will continue. And so that's why we don't see a huge delta there.
Thank you.
Justin, so assuming this passes today, have you guys had any thought around how you would go about informing neighborhood associations, constituents, right, about this shift in our policy, considering how so many have like initiated, but then saw the barriers and then decided against pursuing traffic calming? So what's your plan for that if it passes?
So we've been hesitant to do too much outreach prior to the commission making the actual changes to the policy. If indeed the commission chooses to adopt it today, we will work with our communications department. We have a very good connection through all the neighborhood associations, and that's probably our primary push is through the neighborhood association structure and with our city partners. I've already shared the draft with them, and you saw through the process some of the comments. So through our city partners and through the neighborhood associations, we will kind of publicize this adoption using the cut sheet, kind of highlight some of the changes. And then we'll see if that equates to people getting more interested in this and pursuing it or not. We'll just have to see how that plays out. But that would be our strategy, Commissioner.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, I'm sure there's some folks that want to testify on this.
We do?
Ms. Stacy.
We'll be calling on people that are in the audience first before calling people online.
And let's do 3 in a row so folks kind of know if we have.
Yeah, we don't have too many, but Courtney Madigan, and then Logan Rutt, Nina Pinar.
Perfect. Welcome, Courtney. You know the drill, but everyone state your name and address for the record, and you've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam President and Commission. My name is Courtney Madigan. I live at 4003 Albion Street in Boise. I am here to testify in favor of the changes to the traffic calming process. I am a mother of a traffic violence survivor, and I know firsthand what it is like to navigate the existing traffic calming process. My son Max and I knocked on doors asking for signatures along 2 miles of Kootenai Street to make the road where Max's crash happened safer for vulnerable road users. It took almost 8 years from the day of his crash to the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Kootenai Traffic Calming Project and the bicycle and pedestrian improvements that were installed.
Anything that the commission can do to streamline this process is a step in the right direction. Please approve the proposed changes to the traffic calming process to make it easier for neighborhoods and residents to advocate for safer streets for all road users. Thank you for your time and consideration.
I want to thank Courtney. Can I just thank you personally? I have learned enormous amounts from you. The Kootenai issues on speeding has been going on for decades, and the cumbersome nature of our policy made it difficult for neighbors to do that. And it's the one reason why this is so important is that the reason we put traffic calming on some of these old wide streets should never be because of what you and Joe and Max had to experience. And I just want to thank you for being there and your perseverance, all of you. And please give my best to Max because I know he's doing well.
Thank you for your support during that process too.
Logan,
Welcome, Logan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Logan Rutt. I'm at 2800 North Bogus Basin Road, 8202 Boise, Highlands neighborhood. Here speaking also in favor of the updated traffic calming policy. I personally interact with traffic calming infrastructure on a pretty daily basis, mainly the Bramer diversion, 15th Street island medians. So first of all, thanks to the Commission and the whole ACHD for past implementation efforts. These are routes that I feel very safe on, primarily as a driver, but also a number 10 bus user, pedestrian, and a cyclist. Also see every day how many children use these areas for Washington and Highlands Elementary. So really wanted to share these kind of as success stories with what traffic calming can do. So I believe that adopting the new policy is going to lessen the burden on the neighborhoods to identify their high speed, their high risk areas, and then certainly give them more tools to educate their residents so that we can kind of keep everybody in all the neighborhoods safer on their neighborhood streets. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Logan.
Nina, and after Nina is Devin McCombs.
Welcome, Nina.
Good afternoon, Madam President and Commissioners. My name is Nina Pinar and I live at 3100 West Gray Street. I'm here today as the Advocacy Director for the Boise Bicycle Project and to voice my support for the traffic calming policy change. I'm also going to speak on behalf of Boise's youth today. This Saturday, 634 kids will receive a bike from the Boise Bicycle Project. Each child will leave with a bike, helmet, lock, and lights, and every one of them will complete our traffic safety course before heading home. We're teaching them how to bike safely and responsibly, but once they leave, they're under ACHD's care as road users. ACHD has made great strides in building safer infrastructure, and I believe the proposed traffic calming policy update will help make the progress even further. It'll make it easier for ACHD to slow traffic on neighborhood streets and simplifying the process for residents to request traffic calming measures and critical steps toward ensuring safer streets for all, including our newest and most vulnerable road users. I'll never forget a story of a child who went through our BASH program, Bicycle and Safety Hour, who told us she felt unstoppable after learning how to ride safely. But she also shared how scared she was of speeding cars on her neighborhood streets. This update can help ensure kids like her feel empowered and safe to ride their bikes every day, and even lighten the load on congestion across town. So I urge you to adopt this ordinance change to help make every street as safe as it can be. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. I'll stand for any questions.
Thanks, Nina.
Devin,
Hello, Madam President, Commissioners. My name is Devin McComas. I live at 4902 West Edson Street. I come here today in two capacities, one of which is as the executive director of the Boise Bicycle Project, one of which is as a private road user who lives on Kootenai Street. From a personal note, I would say the efficacy and the traffic calming of the chicanes and the Kootenai Street project has impacted my daily life in a way where I feel safe on my commute, and I can witness young people in my neighborhood ride their bikes safely. From a professional standpoint, and talking about the activities of the Boise Bicycle Project, to add to Nina's great point, we will be giving those kids bicycles this weekend. Part of the work is making sure that there's access to bicycles, and part of the work is doing community outreach to get out there in the community and see what obstacles people have to making it to our shop or to rooms like this today where they're able to advocate for themselves. I would applaud the ordinance for moving towards lowering the threshold of consent in the neighborhood, for giving more materials to neighbors and families, and for allowing residents and not just property owners a voice in the process. And for that reason, I would advocate that we update the code. Thank you for your consideration, and I'll be here for any questions.
On Zoom, we have David Guiotto.
Welcome, David. You'll need to turn off your mute, I think. There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Good afternoon, ACHD commissioners and President Pickering. I'm David Guiotto, pedestrian and cyclist safety advisor to Treefort Music Fest, and I reside at 2822 Tartan Place, Boise, 83702. On a personal note, I'd like to thank Jim Hansen for his years of service on the commission. Jim, you've been a thoughtful, articulate, equally kind and intrepid champion of complete streets in the Treasure Valley, often well ahead of the paradigm. And just thank you very much. I've learned a great deal from you, and Boise and the Treasure Valley is a better place because of you. We at Treefort Music Fest would like to add our voice to the chorus of support for the traffic calming policy changes. All neighborhoods, including downtown neighborhoods, deserve the ability to create safe, enjoyable, and lively settings for their residents. I do have a question. I realize it's a little late in the game for ironing out details, but the question is, would a neighborhood, such as a downtown neighborhood, with streets that are designated as arterial, fall under the purview of this policy should enough residents along those streets desire it? Or in other words, could an arterial street be designated as a residential street, considering that in the example of downtown, more and more residents are living on downtown streets that are designated as arterial, and they deserve the safe, enjoyable, and complete streets that are present in the outlying neighborhoods. So I don't know if this is the right place to ask that question, but I'm asking it nonetheless.
No, thanks, David. The short answer would be no. But I think, you bring up a great point. I think obviously, safety design elements look different on an arterial than they do on a collector or a residential street. And I think this is our attempt to really rectify the biggest need right now, which is our neighborhood streets, and just the backlog of requests that folks are having, and just the lack of support and I think efficacy around the process. So I think happy to chat more about what you're seeing, or if there's a particular roadway that needs help and that we can look into and making it safer. But the short answer is no.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that. In conclusion, we at Treefort fully endorse the traffic calming policy change and encourage ACHD in this direction. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
Next, we have Becky Walker.
Welcome, Becky. Who's on deck after Becky? Miss Stacy?
Mr. Don Kostalik.
Okay. Becky, are you able to take yourself off mute? Okay, well, let's move on to Mr. Kostalik.
I got it.
There you are,
Can you hear
Becky.
me?
Okay.
Okay. Hi, my name is Becky Walker. I live at 10827 Westview Street Road. I am in favor for this reform. Earlier this year, a van jumped the main street outside of my apartment complex. The driver was speeding and distracted, jumped the sidewalk, went down a small embankment, took out two trees, a support beam for a porch, a stairwell, took out the support beam, one of the support beams for my stairwell, and then went right into the middle of the two apartments below me. The way that this was written before, me being a longtime renter, I would not have been able to advocate for change. And by taking away the people who are the owners versus residents is a big change for my neighborhood. My neighbor across from me has lived in her apartment for 20 years. My two neighbors down below have lived there for 15 years. There is a core of us that have lived there a long time. And so this is a great change for people who want to advocate and see change in their neighborhoods. So I am in full support of this, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Becky. Don't see any questions. So Don, you're up next.
Hi, Commissioners. Don Kostelek, 1623 South Division. First of all, apologize for not being there today, Commissioner Hanson. I'm sitting in West Jordan, Utah right now, and certainly if you guys get down here and want to see city streets and DOT streets designed with no consideration for safety, come to West Jordan. It's great to hear the support for this policy and what I would say the first step in modernizing it. I generally support it, but I have one question of clarification and one change I would like to make. The first request would be when neighborhoods go through their neighborhood planning process and identify projects, does that mean those projects are now then exempt from having to achieve this 60% threshold? I think that should be a standard understanding, and neighborhoods, I'm on the board of Southeast Neighborhood Association, should not have to re-go through a 60% support process if our neighborhood plan identified the project. I live on Division. It's a collector. It's a cut through between Boise Avenue and Beacon. And I would request that you just strip the collector specific language that also requires signatures from other side streets. One, why should my family safety be impacted by someone on a side street that doesn't want to go slower on the street I live on? Second, most school buses don't operate on local streets. They operate and pick up kids on collectors. So kids are having to walk alongside these collectors and congregate for that. So I would like to request just apply to local and collectors with the 60% threshold and not have two different rules based on the type of functional classification. Finally, I appreciate Mr. Lucas and the piece about reviewing for the neighborhoods. I would hope that the commission would set a time certain for this review to take place and come back with any modifications, perhaps November 1st or December 1st of 2025. And finally, again, policies moving forward. Given you have so many of these requests, think about the number of subdivisions you're approving with streets that have none of these traffic calming features. And I would hope the commission would next move to just make these traffic calming features a standard requirement in all new development, so the burden is not pushed to the taxpayers in the future. So the staff resources Commissioner McKinney is concerned about doesn't even have to be applied for new streets that are being built in our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Justin, did you want to speak to some of those points and suggestions?
Yeah, Madam President, members of the commission, and this was my fault. I failed to put this policy change in the overall context that we discussed at the beginning, which is this was kind of phase one of a multi-phase approach to this issue across not only our traffic policy, section 5,000, but our development policy, which is section 7,000 and 7,200. And then looking at obviously how we design and build projects through our LTS guidelines and all of those things. So I think that is certainly the intent of the commission as we take the next steps. On the other points, it's at the commission's discretion tonight to take public testimony and make any changes that you see necessary. Staff is comfortable and confident in the current policy, and I think it's been well reviewed and considered by many different advisory committees and groups. So we're ready to move forward with the implementation.
Thanks, Justin.
Madam President.
Commissioner McKinney.
Justin, while you're still there, I'm not sure that I completely understood the comment that was made about the 60% approvals or 60% neighborhood approval threshold. What did you understand that suggestion was?
Yes, so in the section, the draft policy, section 5104.2.5, under neighborhood survey, we do have a designation where it says, for collector streets, the survey area will include households directly abutting the street under consideration for traffic calming and households abutting adjacent local streets that depend upon the collector for major street access. And so I think that's the section of the policy that the citizen was mentioning. And I am, it's really just a question of policy at this point of, when you have a collector street, some collector streets have a lot of direct front-on housing. Some collector streets through some neighborhoods have very little or no front-on housing. And so it really depends on each street individually. And I think we try to balance that within the policy within reason. But ultimately, it's just a policy decision that has to be made.
My understanding was a little bit different. And so Don, feel free to correct me, but my understanding was your point is if that project, that proposed project by that neighborhood is already in a neighborhood plan, they do not have to pursue the 60% approval rating. Is that your point, Don?
No, there were 2 points. Yes, that's one.
That's one
The
of them.
second one is why the double standard that I see on collectors.
Gotcha.
Why does side streets get to then determine that, given the collector I live on, I'm looking for safety, and these are congregating and bus service areas for school kids. That's where I had thought about what Mr. Lucas said about, maybe collectors with front-on housing having one rule and non-front-on housing, but the school bus thing really gets me. And I also know the people in Barber Valley Neighborhood Association are concerned with this policy because of Warm Springs being a collector, the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, one, prohibiting Warm Springs, but what level of support would they have to achieve to even see some of that on a street like Warm Springs? So again, exempt collectors, just make it the same rule.
Thank you.
And Madam President, to speak to the other point, it's ACHD's current I'm not going to say policy, current practice, and I think this will continue, that if a project is identified through a neighborhood plan, it essentially does not go through this process. Those plans are adopted by the commission, and then we execute those based on the individual project. So yes, that's how we do it now, and yes, that's how we plan to continue to do it in the future.
Thank you.
We have one more. We have Beth Norton.
Oh, Beth, we can't hear you.
Really? What about now?
Mm-mm.
How now?
Yep, there we go.
Okay, great.
You're a little
My name
quiet
is
though.
Beth Norton. I work for the Idaho Office for Refugees. I live at 617 South 13th Street.
Beth, do you mind? We're still having a hard time hearing you. Can you go closer to your microphone?
Yep.
There we
I
go.
live at 617 South 13th Street. I serve as the lead on the Neighbors United Transportation Committee, but I am here on behalf of myself as a pedestrian and bike commuter. Last year I sold my car, so I am fully e-bike mobile and I am out on the streets every single day. I'm testifying in support of this initiative. I would love to see more traffic calming happening in many streets, and I'll share a quick story. This October, after putting on my biggest project of the year, which is a big conference for the refugee community, I went to work Monday morning and was taking my route up Oahe Street and came to the intersection of Oahe and Kootenai, which is a four-way stop, seeing no one at the stop sign, seeing no one approaching the stop sign, I treated that stop sign as a yield sign, as is allowed for the Idaho bike law. And as I was rolling through the stop sign, a very large truck blew through, coming down Kootenai, and came within a foot of a completely life-altering, if not life-ending, event that was so scary. I had to pull over and have a good cry afterward. So I know that there's been some work on Kootenai, but looking at that street in reflection, there's a stoplight, and then I don't believe there's any traffic calming between the stoplight and that four-way stop sign. Again, like I said, I'm out there every day, really on every single street. People are driving too fast. So any traffic calming, I am in complete support of. Thank you so much for your work, and thanks for hearing my testimony.
Thanks, Beth. Is there anyone that was not signed up that would like to come on up? Good to see you.
Rob Stark, 6865 East Warm Springs Avenue, Boise, 83716. Madam President, Commissioners, Jim, I'd like to personally thank you for your advocacy and support for all traffic transportation issues in the Barber Valley. I apologize, I must have messed up when I signed up to speak. I'm looking for a further clarification, kind of along the lines of Mr. Kostelik's question. Since, as you know, the Barber Valley Neighborhood Transportation Plan does call for traffic calming on Warm Springs, where Warm Springs doesn't fit the technical definition in the ordinance. I'm just looking for a confirmation, reassurance that this ordinance does not preclude that traffic calming on Warm Springs. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Good point. Yeah, as you know, we're advocating for actually a number of things on Warm Springs, and because they weren't included in the specific planning ordinance, the SPO, and sort of left to ACHD to do, they're under the 5-year plan. So yeah, no, this would not in any way, and I know that your new commissioner is right on top of that, is very sensitive to the fact that there's some catch up that needs to be done on the configuration of Warm Springs now that more and more people have moved in and that road has not been configured as originally envisioned.
Thanks, Rob. Anybody else that would like to testify on this item? Come on, Lisa.
Hello, President Pickering and Commission. Lisa Brady, residing at 1506 North 12th Street, Boise. And as you know, the Safe Routes to School director, and we at Safe Routes are completely in support of this project because it matters to what we hear from the people who talk to us, the parents who talk to us. I can just think of one person just recently who asked me before I knew about this policy, how am I going to get some calming on my street? And it was a long answer because I knew about the Kootenai project and how long that actually took. So it's huge. And Commissioner Hanson, my thanks personally to you. In fact, all of you, really, truly. But the support that we get from you all, from Safe Routes to School, and the consideration that you're giving to the kids that we teach every single day of our job matters. How we build our roads matters. It's saving people's lives, including our own, as we can hear from testimony from people online. So I just want to say thank you, but I also want to reiterate about Warm Springs. We're still paying attention to that from Safe Routes to School, and we will continue to pay attention to that based on this policy. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioners, Commissioner Hanson.
Madam President, as my last official act, I move to adopt ordinance number 253.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, well, there's just a few things.
Sure.
He's on brand.
I'm totally on brand. Thank you for scheduling this as the last vote. I've been coming to this agency for 12 years trying to figure out how to make this very, very cumbersome policy work. John Wasson is a saint for having to try and navigate that. And he's gone around and try and work with people. But still, it's as Justin pointed out, a 5-page, very cumbersome, bureaucratic process. And really, we didn't get any traction on it from the commission standpoint. I think the staff was there, but the commission until the last 2 years. And I just kudos to the neighborhoods and the associations and the advisory groups for moving forward once we said, okay, now we're going to move forward on this. There's been a lot of outreach, all the advisory committees. I see this as sort of like, I saw this field with a massive amount of obstacles in it, and we've removed most of them. There's still a few, and we're going to find out what they are, or I should say, you all will find out what they are. And it's not absolutely perfect. It's also frustrating, again, something that you've heard me preach on, and that is some point in the past, the wisdom of past commissions was to take policies which should be updated regularly and turn our policy manual into an ordinance. It's a little like adopting the Idaho Code into the Idaho Constitution, making it incredibly difficult for commissioners who get elected representing people to actually update the policies. And this is one of them. So it's been extremely challenging to get to this point, and I'm glad we have. And it's about a prioritization process. We still have our process of identifying projects through the integrated 5-year work plan. We have a new process over the last couple of years to do interim temporary installations to address traffic calming before we can put something permanent in, like in sections of Kootenai. Those of you who live in Columbia Village who have been concerned about speeding cars know exactly. If you don't know what temporary installation is, go drive up in Columbia Village, and kids aren't at risk the way they were, the kids who were playing games up there. So this policy actually references temporary installations can be addressed, and as we study this. So I really appreciate that we're at this point that we can adopt this policy, or policy as an ordinance. And in the future, hopefully you can resolve this whole difficulty of making it so challenging to adopt ordinances.
Commissioner Gold?
Thanks, Madam President. I just want to thank Justin for streamlining this and all the outreach efforts, and then just, everybody who testified today and who have approached their commissioner over time and talked about the need for process improvement, and just glad to be here and have the opportunity to adopt it. I think it's a huge improvement, and we can continue to, see how this works and refine it. And yep. So.
Commissioner McKinney?
Madam President, yes. Yeah, I just have a couple comments on this new ordinance in general. I'm happy with it. The one, a couple of concerns, and these are points on which we can discuss changing the threshold from 75% of residents being in favor to 60%. The only issue there is basically we don't want to be the instigator of community, what's the right word, conflict. And so that's kind of the question there. If you've got, a slim majority who want something and a sizable minority who don't want it, then you have a recipe for trouble in a neighborhood. And it would be unfortunate for, ACHD to be kind of in the middle of that sort of thing. At the same time, on all these questions, there's very likely to be disagreements. So there's no way that we could prevent all disagreements. So that's a judgment call. I'm not sure. 60% might be a little bit low. I would be more inclined to say 66%. But this is the kind of thing where I say I'd be in favor of passing this and seeing how it works, because that's the nice thing about an ordinance is that we can pass it, and if it doesn't work, we can come back and revisit it if we need to. The other issue of focusing on residents of property as opposed to just owners, I think in all cases, absolutely residents should be, the people who live on the street. They're the ones who are affected the most by what happens on the street. At the same time, I wonder if taking the interests of residents only and not residents and owners, that's also a question. Because owners still have an interest in what happens on their street as well. Nevertheless, these are the kinds of things that we can, I think we ought to pass it and put it in place and see how things go. And if there are real problems, we can revisit it. But if not, away we go.
Commissioner Hanson, would you be amenable to adjusting your motion just slightly so that we're setting a date that we do review the ordinance in December of 2025?
Okay, well, I will amend my motion to review the efficacy of the ordinance 1 year from now.
There's second.
Second approved?
Yep. Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldthorpe. Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yeah, one last little bit of a tidbit. For the last 10 years, because Jim trumps me by 2, I've watched the requests for traffic calming come in and require the 75% approval of property owners. And unless I completely have erased my memory, I don't think we hardly ever hear back from absentee owners as far as their desires for those roads. All they're doing is paying property taxes and watching their property appreciate, and have pretty much no care as to what we do with the road. So keeping it for the residents of that neighborhood, that street, that's fine with me.
Well, I don't want to be the last person to talk when we've got like a whole fun activity after our meeting, so I'll be short. But I just have to say that this policy and ordinance change is really near and dear to my heart. It's something that, as someone that lives up on the west bench of Boise, and represents multiple neighborhood associations that are renters that have historically had the hardest time navigating our existing bureaucracy to get traffic calming in place. I think this is just a huge step in the right direction and is one of the big reasons why I ran in the first place. And I think, especially now on the heels of just running again, one of the top 3 issues that I heard, regardless if you lived in Garden City, if you lived off of Eagle Road, is speeding in our local neighborhoods and communities. And I think out of all the things that we do as a commission, making it easier to be problem solvers and to give that autonomy and empower our constituents to advocate for their communities and the projects that they want to see done. I think this is very much in line with that goal. And we should be stewards of those solutions. So again, thanks to Justin and our entire staff, our advisory committees, the letters that we've received, the input. This has been a long time coming, and thank you for shepherding such a really professional and easy process. And with that, I'll ask for the vote. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. All right. Yes.
Got it done.
All right. So I have to ask, anyone wants to testify on anything?
Drew Alexander did sign up.
Drew, did you want to hold us up? I don't think so. I think so.
Wrong, Drew.
We'll put it to the other one. Okay, if there's no one that would like to address the commission at this time, the meeting is adjourned. We're gonna roll into our work session, which is the farewell to Commissioner Hanson.
So I have a few people to thank, and so I brought a notebook of people I want to thank. And as President Pickering knows, I am the quietest member of the commission. I usually have very little to say. But since this is my last shot, and from now on, I'm going to be limited to 3 minutes when I come before the commission.
Starting now. No, I'm kidding.
I have to really point out, this isn't about me. This is about you. My model of leadership is Fred Rogers. Those of you know, I have educational television in my bones, and Fred Rogers in Sesame Street defines what a neighborhood is, and frankly, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood today because I see the sun is starting to come out, and it's been particularly beautiful to see you all here. And so to a certain extent, I want to introduce you to each other and to the staff, because you are the people in the neighborhood who made it possible for me to be here. And so I'm just reflecting what you've done and taught me and led me and answered my calls and walked with me and kvetched with me as I've come from meetings that have been particularly painful. And so if you'll allow me, I would want to thank you personally. First, to start with is my family, because when I said I wanted to, I thought, okay, a number of people have urged me to serve on the Ada County Highway District. And they said, the what? And realizing that things like inane ordinances and policies are what we deal with. And you saw a little bit of that. So my wife, Joan, who's the most brilliant producer on Idaho Public Television. If you didn't watch her new documentary on Frank Church, make sure you do that. My brother, John, his wife, Terry, my daughter, Sam, and son, Harrison, my niece, Grace, who was my campaign manager in the last, helped on my campaign in the last election, Dot and JK and other family members. I have family of my spiritual family, which is I'm an active member at St. Stephen's Church, Susie and Scott Ellsworth. Scott is also an engineer. And so he took a lot of my calls, not only about, what was on my heart, but also what was on the highway. Joe Keller and Jenna Aarons. And then I have this family of friends, very close friends, many of whom are also active in Rotary. Jeff Thompson, Lori Mann, Doug Uli, John Lodell, AJ and Susie Belukoff. They too have walked with me on this journey, which has had its ups and downs. I see Dave Penny's in the back. He's a good friend with Pat Miller, who I became particularly close with in 2018. I won't go into any details. And my mentor in the all world nonprofit, the head of Idaho's Community Foundation, and a very dear friend, Steve Burns, helped me on this journey. Old friends from my days in organizing with United Vision for Idaho, who also thought I was crazy, but also said, well, I guess that's what we tell you. It's not a question of whether you serve in public office in a democracy, it's when. And so I did it a couple of times. There's a Roger Sherman. I don't know if he's in the room. He's one of my mentors. And Lisa Sanchez, who's been involved in organizing for as long as I have, just about. When I decided to explore this possibility, of course, some of the first people I spoke to were people who had served. Gary Richardson, Susan Eastlake talked with me about, on the one hand, yes, and the other hand, are you crazy? So they agreed, and Diane Ranane, who's with Gary, have also taken my calls and listened to me. John Frandon, who was serving at the time, encouraged me, and Paul Woods, who served with us for 4 years, who both became dear friends because of their service on this commission and knew what I was getting into. When I dived in, one of the people I called all the time, and we actually would go for these long walks, because walking and processing is a really good thing, is Deanna Smith. Deanna, are you somewhere back there? You have taken more calls from me, I think, than anybody. She's been involved with Smart Growth and also with the East End. And speaking of the East End, I see John Crowley here. Some of the Brittany Sigliano, Rich Rahill, some of the people in the East End have also gone on many walks with me in the East End. And as a result, there's some things happening in the East End that just got ignored forever. Probably, about 8 years ago, someone from the Southwest Ada County Alliance started coming to our meetings. Marissa Keith, she's right there. And so, what do you do when someone starts coming and asking questions and then providing you information? Well, you put them on speed dial and then you call them up and you tell them, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? And I can sometimes hear her eyes roll as she gets another email from me saying, what do you think about this? She had to call in reinforcements and got her husband, Michael, involved in this as well. Somebody who testified just now, who is also taking a million calls from me, head of Safe Routes to School. She was the bike advisory chair. Lisa Brady in the back has been enormously helpful. And she's also, she and Darren have bought me beers while we process some of this. Clancy and Tucker Anderson, Kay Hummel, saw Kay here. Anyone who knows the tenacity of local organizing going back decades, I won't announce your age, Kay, but Kay knows more about how these roads have been developed over the last couple of decades. I want to point out Darren Fluke in particular too, because of his role at Boise City staff. You know, the entire district is in the city of Boise, so it just made sense to me that I call up people in Boise City staff and the council members when I had issues. And I can't tell you how many times I sat down with Darren and now with Bree, who's serving in the mayor's office, gave me information. So when it sounded like I knew what I was talking about, it's because I only just talked with them or with you all. Meridian City staff. There's Bill Neri over there. How many times have I called you? Walter Steed, who's on our advisory committee for impact fees. Eagle City Council. Now, Eagle is a little different place nowadays, but some of the people I called were Miranda Gold, Janet Bouchert, and my favorite mayor, Stan Ridgway, who's sitting right there. Garden City Mayor John Evans, who I have leaned on and called upon. And he understood that when things were getting tense between the commission and Garden City, it wasn't necessarily between all of the individual commissioners. And we figured out how to work through some of those conflicts when we had some new leadership. In Boise City Council, I see that two of my very special council member, former council member friends here, Elaine Clegg and Marianne Jordan. One of the things that I wanted to do was get appointed and right away I was on the board of Compass. For those of you who don't know, it's a regional transportation planning board. The feds say you can't get any money unless you have this planning board and you actually know how you're going to spend it. So we have this planning board that does or doesn't function sometimes. But I thought, well, I'm cheap. I'm Scottish. I'm going to hitch a ride with, since Marianne and Elaine are going there anyway. And so I rode out with them. And boy, did I get an earful in the car. I learned a whole lot. And so as a result, I called on them after that. I got an earful from, and I really appreciate the input from past Mayor Dave Beater, TJ Thompson, who we were active on the Obama campaign together, Ben Quintana, who we were involved in the Energize Our Neighborhoods project, Scott Ludwig, who was a fellow attorney, Dave Eberly, who is an economist, who is another one of those people where be careful about asking him what time it is. He will tell you how to make a watch. And of course, Lisa Sanchez, I was so thrilled when she got elected to the city council as well. Current Mayor McLean, big fan of hers, and Jimmy Halliburton, had talked to them before they were on the council and got their input on all kinds of issues to do with organizing. And our new council members, Meredith Stead, Kathy Corliss. Actually, is Kathy here? She was the organizer of the South Cole neighborhood, an often ignored neighborhood out there south of the freeway. And I got a lot of great back and forth with her, and the leadership I think that South Cole has demonstrated is due to the model that she set. Jordan Morales, Colin Nash, Lucy Willits, the whole Boise City Council, I think. I really appreciate that when I ask them something or get some input, they respond. Think about the things that we've been through. Remember the buffered bike lanes on Maine and Idaho? Okay. And kind of the reaction of a couple of commissioners up here. We went through actually this big book. You know what this is? This is the St. Louis Development Agreement, which Elaine and I had a different idea than the majority, but we learned some lessons. And of course, it was not, had to be Boise's #1 project for 5 years in a row, paying off that deal. The Boise Transportation, you know what this is? TAP. Well, I keep referring back and forth. Boise developed its own transportation action plan because they totally understood that transportation and development made sense. Again, it's people like Elaine and Marianne and Darren who taught me how they interposed and not to give up if there were obstacles that were put up. The ULI did a study on downtown housing, and it really helped me understand how housing and transportation go together. And the folks who were involved with ULI, I leaned on. Energize Boise, Melinda Goldrick got me even deeper involved in the Vista neighborhood. Is Dave Kangas here? Dave always returns my call, and the reason why we have Nez Perce as a priority, and I've been obnoxious about getting that, is because Dave Kangas and the neighborhood and Energize Boise prioritize that. Sorry, it's still not built, but you guys are going to do it, right? Columbus Street, Hawthorne School, very sensitive towards that. And if Dave was here, he'd say, and what about the railroad and the federal way crossings? We're going to still fight for those. Diane Cushlan with ULI, she helped to do a study on the Vista. And I have a whole thing on the Vista, which apparently we're going to follow, right? We're going to follow that ULI Vista study as we're building Vista, thanks to Diane Cushlan and the whole group of folks, especially the Depot neighborhood. We did things on 27th Street with Boise. I think I pointed that out a little earlier. Helping with the Pathways Project, the initiative the Boise City is doing, a 10-minute walk to a park initiative, the integration of modern zoning codes. To think that you can serve on a highway district, a transportation agency, and not know about all the things that the city is doing, is leading, is naive. You have to know both. But I do want to do some shout out to some particular neighborhood leaders. You heard me give special kudos to Courtney and Joe and Max with the Depot Bench. Jay Pickett at Depot Bench, and I don't think he's actually ever been president, but he always returns my calls, and he knows how to get things on the agenda. And when we did Kootenai traffic calming, if you haven't driven down Kootenai, walk down Kootenai, cycle down Kootenai, that's kind of the gold standard, at least that section with the chicanes. And I was so thrilled when we did the ribbon cutting. I've never been to a ribbon cutting where there was dancing. And I hope we do more of that dancing. But I was also super insistent that we weren't going to stop there, that Rose Hill also, and perhaps even more so, suffered from the kind of challenges that Kootenai did. And I was really obnoxious at quite a number of meetings, right?
Look at it now.
To say that we're not just going to put a traffic circle at Oahe. We have to do something on the whole stretch. And after insisting on it, and Chrissy Inselman went out there and had 2 or 3 walks down the street. I went on a couple of walks with people. The leaders in that neighborhood walked back and forth, and we now have some traffic. Now it's temporary, remember, so there's some permanent features that need to go in, but you just have to keep persisting. And I can't name all the people who I walked with on up and down Rose Hill, Shoshone, Kasha, Emerald and Garden Streets, but some of you are in the room, and if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be in the point we are now where we're doing it. And walk and bike down Garden Street now. I only have a small section in the district I represent, but that's a great example. In fact, the minister at my church came up to me and says, can I talk to you about Garden Street? I really like that. Barber Valley. Barber Valley is amazing. I've learned a lot from Barber Valley. The first person was Brandy Wilson. Is Brandy here? She came up and she said, okay, this is what needs to be done. And she would do it during public communications. Aside, every city should have a section on their agenda that says public communications, so that if something's not on the agenda, someone can come in and tell you what ought to be on the agenda. Brandy came in during public communications and on other projects and said, "Yeah, there's unfinished business in the Barber Valley, and you need to make these changes to the master street map." I didn't even know what the master street map was. She taught me, spent time with me, and I became an advocate for that. John Mooney, Rob Stark, Zach Pietmeyer, Gary Vesey, a lot of people in the Barber Valley. Their persistence means that some of the things that we failed to act on in the development, now the weakness was, of course, they adopted the specific planning ordinance, except Warm Springs, let's just let ECHD deal with that. Now we're living with the consequence of unfinished things and people and kids living there. The new school opened last year, and that was a stark reminder of what should have been built when those streets were built in the first place. The other neighborhood I'm very close to, of course, I live in Southeast, is Southeast SENA, Southeast Neighborhood Association. I went to their meetings even before I ran, and Susan Eastlake was sitting there, and Brian McDevitt, and actually Chuck McDevitt and Chris Danley, all of them said, okay, here's some fresh meat. I'm going to tell them what they need to know. Tricia Nelson became active as well, Fred Fritchman, Linda Paul, who's actually with the South Boise Village. Look what we got, right? And I know we had advocates with Elaine Clegg, the Leadville Bikeway, the Manitou Crossing at Beacon, Bergeson Street, traffic calming, that took a long time, and Columbia Village, both of which were able to be done following chip seal. But because you advocated for it, you taught me, we were able to do that. Right in the heart of my district is Boise State University. I love Boise State University, especially because Drew Alexander, who I've dealt with now for quite a number of years, he has to deal with the city of Boise, ACHD, the state of Idaho, and the neighborhood associations. And he's still, is as calm as a cucumber. And he's still doing a lot. So I really appreciate Drew in particular, but many of the people who worked at Boise State. And the thing that they helped me understand is the challenges that they faced as well, so that it wasn't just, oh, Boise State can't get their act together. It's like, no, they're dealing with the same sort of challenges going back and forth. And we saw this, the Bike Advisory Committee existed before I came on, and I started attending their meetings. And a number of people, Marcus Orton, who was chairman at the time, he said, oh, why are you here? What did we do wrong? I said, aren't commissioners supposed to attend advisory committees? To whom are you giving advice? Then we started a trend, didn't we, Kent, of attending advisory committees. Lisa Brady, Mary Beth Nutting, who's now the chair of that committee, Dave Giotto, who was active on that, Wava Kaufman, who's a bike and pedestrian advocate, who's been on it the entire time I've been on the commission, from CUNA, Nina Schaefer, Brian Keene, Gary Seeger. Are you here? Learned a lot about Eagle from Gary. And the staffs of those committees, Meg McCarthy, Dave Rader, Edmondson. I got to know Matt Edmonds even more while he was here. And as a result, those committees sponsored walks and bike rides, which we didn't do before. So what better way to find out about a neighborhood than go on a walk, go on a bike ride?
Which was one of my ideas. John.
I know. I'm getting to the next one. So one of the committees that didn't exist, we said, yeah, people who ride bikes also walk, but let's get a specific perspective from people who walk. And we created a pedestrian advisory group. And the first chair of the pedestrian advisory group was Alexis Pickering. And she was fantastic. And she also asked the kind of questions that made people uncomfortable, which I really liked. Said, why aren't we doing this? And why aren't we doing that? And she didn't take no for an answer. So I was really pleased when I heard she was considering running for the commission. Cynthia Gibson was the chair of the committee for several years. And then Joe Jazuski, Wave is on that committee. Mike, Keith are on that committee. The Idaho Walk Bike Alliance works closely with both of those. We have an ADA advisory committee, the Americans with Disability Act. And I've learned this from Jeremy, Max, and Roger Sherman and others who have been active in the disability movement. This isn't just about, oh, we got to do this because the federal government requires us to do this. No, we're doing this because these are our neighbors. I'm channeling my inner Fred Rogers even more when it comes to ADA issues. We shouldn't be required to make our neighborhood safe to get around if you're using a walker or a wheelchair. We should do it because the feds tell us we should do it because it's right. And frankly, I've seen it, you know, when my dad was using a walker and we walked to the coffee shop, he's the one who pulled out the wallet. I didn't. So it's all about economic investment from people who live in the neighborhood. And that then led us to this notion of, well, if you can't count it, it doesn't count. When I first got here, the only counts I kept hearing about was this level of driver convenience, which we call level of service, LOS. It's really about, you know, how frustrated you are when things don't move very fast along an arterial at the peak hour. It's just, well, how do you measure? What about the measurements for people who are walking and biking and using a wheelchair? Oh, well, we don't have any metrics for that. And thanks to Don Kostelek and quite a number of you, they taught me they do exist. They're there. And so this is, again, they gave me the courage to be really obnoxious about insisting, okay, why don't we have metrics? Why don't we have metrics? And I even went and got some stuff from Florida and said, they're using some metrics. Why don't we have metrics? Then our staff who got it faster, I think, than some of our commissioners. And then when sort of the air cleared a little bit, and there are some really stressful times. I mean, I remember talking about level of pedestrians metrics, and they were just dismissing me. Most of those meetings took place in the back, and several of you, I see Tom Rosenthal would sit back there and watch our meetings in the back room, which we don't do anymore, by the way. We don't hold public meetings back there anymore, is because those conversations, I needed your input, I needed your help. Well, once the air cleared, the leadership on the staff, and the guy who got the award for doing the legwork is standing right there. That's the guy we hired as the director. Ryan Head took the bull by the horns, and we have livable streets performance measures, metrics. So if ever you need to say, okay, I have a question, just say, what's the level of traffic stress on this? And one of our staff members will be able to tell you what that is. And people like Meg and Dave Rader and Edinson Bautista and others have really integrated that in their work. I'm not going to name all the staff because I'm going to miss somebody. So I'll buy you a drink if I miss you. And you heard about what the next phase was, the speed policy we just adopted. Here's the thing that you have to remember is that success is often what doesn't happen on a street. So when kids aren't killed on a street walking to school, that's a success, but we don't hear about that. So we have to know that kids can walk and bike and ride a bus to school. We don't need to have our names engraved on a bridge to do that. Just walking in that neighborhood next to some kids walking to school, and they're laughing and playing and doing what kids do, and people are driving safely. That's success. But as you can probably imagine, there's a ton of policies I didn't get to. So it's all your problem. You got to deal with it. Impact fees. Does that sound familiar?
You forgot to tell them about the one budget that you approved.
Oh, yeah, I know one budget. So Tricia Nilsson, Don Kostelek, and Westcott, when you're talking about impact fees, that's a really obscure thing. I made a mistake first of talking to Dave Eberly about that. How many of you know Dave Eberly? So he was on the city council, an economist. And oh my God, it was really hard to understand after he explained it to me. But then Tricia explained it to me and Ann Westcott, and they told me, okay, this is what, and so I've been really obnoxious about pushing for impact fee changes. I see Walter Steed is here too. That's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I'm going to come back and I will speak within my 3 minutes. I want to do a shout out to some of the great business leaders in our community, because it's like I am interacting with businesses all the time, and the investments that are made in our neighborhoods is because they take the risks, to sometimes huge financial risks. And it's really important when they say, this will work better if we have this kind of infrastructure, that we listen to them. You know, infrastructure that allows people to get to their businesses by walking and biking and bus, as well as by driving. Scott Shaner is right over there, one of our greatest developers in the community, Doug Fowler. We have mixed use MXD methodology because they advocated for it, and several of us said, that ought to happen. Do you know that in the way we used to analyze all trips from a house was 10 car trips, every single house. So it's sort of like, okay, that means we have to build enough car infrastructure for 10 car trips. And because of the MXD methodology, they did it. Access management on Fairview and our access management policy was a huge lift. The complexities of a huge urban downtown that was growing. I started after downtown Boise implementation plan was initiated, and I learned a ton from John Brunell and Doug Woodruff, Zach Pietmeyer at CCDC. John, are you still here? Yeah. CCDC does phenomenal work, and every one of us has urban renewal district in our cities, and you have to spend time understanding the juxtaposition between investment, road infrastructure, other infrastructure, and it's paying off. Duh. Do you remember our parking fights over parking pucks? It was a good way of understanding ACHD doesn't do parking. Cities regulate parking, and you've got to respect their elected governments. Transit, huge. I spent a ton of time with Kelly Badesheim. I'm thrilled to death that Elaine Clegg is the head of VRT. A huge lift happened while in my early years was the creation of the Downtown Transit Center. And I was just so pleased that we could usher that one in, and you've seen what's evolved from that. Sadly, Boise's the main investor in transit, so transit just exists within Boise. So other citizens haven't really experienced the value of incorporating transit. Unfortunately, downtown Boise implementation plan left out 5th and 6th Street, left out 15th and 16th Street, a couple of other things, and we're dealing with those challenges. But I want to do a shout out to CCDC for lifting up 11th Street. ACHD took on, let's do 11th Street as a main corridor all the way from the foothills to the river. And then when it got kind of complicated downtown, it was like, maybe we should just do it to State Street. And CCDC got right in there and said, let's do it together so that when it's finished, it connects all the way through. And so there's so many little things we had to navigate, and it's because of John and Zach and Doug and others, we were able to navigate some of those things. I'll do a shout out to the Boise Chamber of Commerce, Ray Stark and Bill Connors, Bree Brush and Tori Thomas. Because I went to virtually every Boise Chamber of Transportation meeting. Who's going to be going to those? On the third Thursday of the month. Because that's a really good way to teach yourself what needs to happen. My last big thanks is to the staff, because they have dealt with me for 12 years. They've shown enormous patience, a willingness to listen to me, help me understand, help me to channel my inner Mr. Rogers, didn't take offense, like some of my past commissioners used to, by ideas that I would throw out. I want to lift up especially Sherry Knaus. She was amazing, especially that one year where 2 commissioners handed my asphalt to me on a tray. And Stacy Spencer. And here's one where I know if there was a sound effect on your phone and I'd call up or email her, can I do this? I want this, take this off the agenda. If there was a sound effect for eye rolls, I would always get that. Oh my God, he's at it again. Ryan Head, Justin, Christy Little, Jennifer, Shandy, everyone. The staff really has evolved over here, what I've really enjoyed seeing is that when I first came here, it was sort of like, commissioners are kind of dysfunctional. They don't know what they're talking about. It's all chaotic. The whole idea is to sort of function without needing to interact with them as much as possible. That's changed. There's much greater integration of planning and engineering. Engineers talk to me a little more now. They're not quite so afraid of me. Because I was always not just asking, well, why not? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do this? And when things really got hard, it would be Steve Price, the lawyer, who would get up and say, well, this is the reason your policies tell you you can't do this. And I said, oh, okay, fine. Let's work on the policy. So I want to thank Steve and the legal staff. They say the buck stops with the commission. And if that's true, the buck has to start with the commission too. And I want you to be the reminders of these folks that it always starts with the commission as well. I want to lift up, especially in the winter, our maintenance department. If you haven't ridden on a snowplow or a chip seal, I'll bet they'll let you do it because they do phenomenal work. I've also seen this grow, and the salt shed is going away, right, Mayor? Because of some great leadership that figured out, okay, we need modern maintenance facilities, both in Boise and out in Meridian. We may get Snowmageddon, we may not. I thought Paul Woods was a fantastic leader when we were in Snowmageddon, but in the meantime, we learned lessons, and there's a lot more going on. And of course, what better time to depart when we're going to be moving out of this old, decrepit building that doesn't really function into something. But it took some insistence. No, we're not going to build something right here. We're not going to spend $40 million for something right here. And patience, and now we're going to move into it. There's a lot more that needs to be done. I always say this isn't a car agency. This is a right-of-way agency. This is a right-of-way agency. This is a agency that manages the right-of-way that helps people move on it. Lots of people have to have that freedom to move, and more and more and more people want to live here. That means we don't just add more, we actually make it work better. The other is that when people come, they want homes. Homelessness is a housing issue, and getting to and from a home is a transportation issue. And it's not affordable if lower housing is wiped out by higher transportation costs. So housing, come to ACHD as well as to the various cities. We can't export affordable housing out to the desert. The gridded networks are different than the non-gridded networks. We just have to be honest that we have different functions, and around the congestion is going to exist. Terrible congestion is going to exist in those areas that don't have grids. Just have to be aware that that's the decisions that have been made by land use agencies in the past. And so fighting a bus stop on Vista won't cause congestion on 10 Mile to go away, or opposing student crossing on Nez Perce for Whitney School does not make the safing and the crossing on U-Stick at Sawtooth Middle School any safer. So I look forward to thanking every one of you in person. I'm not going away. I figure that I'm going to be around. Right, Elaine? I'm going to be around to ride light rail and transit all through this valley until I'm in my 90s. And here's the deal. A number of you are on speed dial. Don't make me go away. Just put Tricia Nilsson as the speed dial. When you call me, I'm going to assume you're calling me to invite me to coffee or to buy me a beer. Okay? So Tricia Nilsson is your commissioner from now on, and make sure she's the one you follow up with. Thank you. You're a blessing to me.
So we technically do have a program. We weren't able to jump into that before he dived right in. Yep. We do have some refreshments and some lunch over here. There's a couple comments that I'm gonna make and then Councilmember Halliburton is going to make, but Ryan, do you wanna? You mind if I just jump in? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So really quickly, for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Alexis Pickering. I'm the commission president of ACHD. And really briefly, because I know I'm like in the way of mingling with the star today, just want to share 3 points and like my experience with Jim. First of all, happened as a constituent, not of his, but as someone that was deeply concerned about our road system and how we were responding to being the fastest growing county in the country at the time. And, you know, at the time, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, him and Commissioner Goldthorpe were the only ones that would return an email, that would show up to an audit, that would show up to any type of conversation about how things were going. And it was because of his leadership and being that beacon, even in dark and challenging times as a transportation organization. He was a home for many of us, even when we did not have good representation from our own districts. And it was because of your leadership and goading and support that I was like, oh, I can find a path forward, right, for solutions. And even in this moment where we're trying to shine a light on you, you're trying to elevate all of us that were lucky to be along your path. And that's just who you are. And you are a wonderful human being. And it's been a tremendous honor to witness you as a constituent and then as a candidate running for election alongside you 4 years ago. And then as a new commissioner, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, being like, how do we do this? And honestly, regardless if you haven't been in elected office before, one of the biggest challenges from my perspective is the lack of mentorship and the ability to have a safe place to say, hey, this feels weird, or that I really have these questions. Can I ask them, or who do I ask them of? Is this the process that is the way that we usually do it? Those are the types of things that are really challenging and can kind of stumble a new person in those roles, especially as they're trying to get up to speed, absorb as much as possible, and be effective and helpful, right? And from the get-go, Commissioner Hansen has always been that mentor, that person that I can come to when I'm like, I want to pull my hair out, right? Or whatever. Be like, it's not that bad. There's a path, Alexis. It's okay. We all, you know, and just see the shared values, right, that we have with just about everybody. And just you highlighted some of the accomplishments that we've been able to do together in the last 4 years, but it's only because you stuck it out for that long. You had a hard road for those first 2 terms. And it's just been a true gift that you were able to say what you wanted to say and advocate for your district in a way that was truly, you are the embodiment of a champion for your district. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that you have their best interests at heart. And you set a very high bar. And I know that your neighborhood associations are so grateful to you for how you go to bat to them for every week. And I know our staff don't ever let them forget it either. Even if we sometimes disagree when we're like, well, hey, what about my district? You can't just get everything you want, Jim. So I think, you know, as a beacon to not only us on the commission, but as to other electeds, you've set the bar really high on going to where the communities are at, listening to them, actually saying, okay, I can be a part of this. Let me find a way to like get what you need. And it's never been about you. It's always been about what they want and safety and moving people safely throughout their neighborhoods. And that mission has never changed. It's only become more fervent in you and how you move throughout the world. And so you have a tremendous legacy. And I just hope, I know that you'll see it from a different vantage point right? You'll see these policies in action, our 5-year work plan in practice and being implemented. But I just want you to just take a breath for a moment and just realize, and maybe not talk for a second. I know, so hard, but just, I think, take a moment to actually recognize the work, the good work that you've been able to bring, not just to this commission, but I would argue the entire state, and how we move people and being a transportation leader in this state. And you have so much to be proud of. And it's been a true honor to serve beside you for the last 4 years, and looking forward to seeing what you bring up in just a few months, I'm sure. But we have some fun things for you to recognize your service and your leadership, and we wouldn't be here without you. So with that, Ryan, do you want to share a couple things, or do we want to transition? Okay, Councilman Halliburton, do you mind coming up really quick?
I might be one of the only people who can speak as long as Jim, and I promise everybody that I won't do that. Commissioner President, Commissioners, Commissioner Hanson, my friend, my mentor, Jim, I'm very honored to be able to stand up here and thank you today on behalf of past city councils, current city councils, future city councils, and mayors. The mayor couldn't be here today. I've got a gift from her, and she wants me to let you know that your service will be featured in our upcoming newsletter that goes out into the entire city. You've made an impact on this city, and one of the things I want you to know on behalf of a city council member is that our city is stronger because of you. Our streets are safer because of you. There are kids and families and people walking on the streets today alive because of you. And I want you to know that. From a personal perspective, I want to share one story and then I'll be done. I remember the first time that I spoke at this microphone. It was the very first time that I spoke anywhere at a public meeting. And I was much younger at the time, just a little bit dumber. And I got grilled. I got grilled when I came up here. And I sat down in my chair, feeling really small, feeling really embarrassed, and probably never going to show up to testify publicly again. And when the meeting was over, you ran down, you said, "Thank you for coming." And you said, "Don't stop showing up." And you've told me that so many times over the years. And I want to thank you for that message because I did continue to show up. And I know I wasn't the only person that you told that message to. There's a lot of people that you identified in the audience today that you encouraged, you empowered, and you mentored to continue to show up. One of the things that I started thinking about recently, though, is what it must have been like for you to continue to show up as well. Because I know that there were times when this was not an easy place to be. I know there was a time when you shared your voice and your voice wasn't heard, but you continued to show up day after day after day, meeting after meeting after meeting. You continue to lift other people up in the process, and you've created and you've helped build something really beautiful today. So I want to say from me personally, thank you for teaching me how to show up, and thank you for showing up for our community. Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, on behalf of staff, first and foremost, there's some things I got to say. This is the last day you're my boss, so I think I can say, no, I'm kidding. I'm not going to say all the things that, truly, first and foremost, I want to take the opportunity to thank Joan. Thank you so much for your support of him. Every hour he's spent leading us has been an hour away from you. And we recognize that, and we recognize that this honor today is yours as well. And so we do have some flowers over here for you that we would ask you to take with you. Commissioner Hanson, it's been a roller coaster of time, hasn't it? I was reminded yesterday of my record with you.
as in voting in support of things that I've stood up here and testified of, or testified for and brought before the commission. And I don't think there were many that you actually said yes to. There was a few policy changes that we worked through together. There was a few plans, livable streets performance measures. We definitely agreed upon that. But truly, on my part, one of the greatest times was when you said yes to allow me to have this position. Truly, that your trust and faith in me, even when we didn't always agree in different times, is truly meant a lot. From staff, we just want to say we know we are not the same agency because of your leadership. You have consistently pushed for and advocated for changes that were needed, that were important, and that have made our community safer. You have been a champion for your district. And for your constituents. We do know your feelings on Nez Perce. I will make sure that, that you know that. There's a lot of things, though. That is just one of many projects that you have championed and that have been accomplished because you've advocated for those. You know, as we celebrate this milestone, we're reminded of the impact of public service, that it takes someone who's willing to stand up and say, I'll do it. And so thank you for your willingness to do that. To that end, we do have here just a small token of our appreciation from staff and from the district, recognizing your 12 years of service here. We do have one more thing that I'm going to let Commissioner Pickering introduce here.
Tom, do you want to just come on up? So we didn't want to just give you a little thing to put on your bookcase, you know. We wanted something that you would actually get to see every day if you choose to, depending on your route to work or the coffee shop or the brewery. But we named the Leadville Bikeway after you. So you get to
So
see.
Commissioner, we often will give a sign, and normally they're these green things and they're pretty and all, but we definitely did want to make sure that you had a copy of the Leadville Bikeway sign. We know that's close to your home. And so this is for you, and we will make sure that those signs get up in the very near future.
Does that mean I have to do the maintenance on it? Go out there and pick up the garbage?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, we expect you to shovel all the snow.
Yeah.
Buy your own mini hog, yes. But it's the least we can do after your tremendous legacy and your work. And it is an honor to honor you in this way. But any closing remarks? I don't know. It's like,
Are you sure, President
don't
Pickering?
There's food waiting for us. Eager to get some hugs and handshakes from all of you.
one more round of applause for Commissioner Hanson. Okay.